hear me now? Okay, I think we are now good to go. As I was saying, my name is John Simon, or Simon John. I'll be talking to you today about biomass as a source, as energy resource. And I said at the beginning of this presentation, we have a 3-hour-long presentation. But within the presentation, we would like to break whatever we'll be doing by 10. At 10, we will take some time to break, and then thereafter we will continue. Okay? So, we are looking at something very interesting, and I will not want to assume that you don't know anything about this, what we are talking about. It will be not correct for me to begin to assume that you don't know anything about this, because this is one of the initial sources of energy that nature has ever given us. Okay? Well, in this presentation today, first of all, we'll be looking at the overview of biomass as a renewable energy resource. And then thereafter, we shall take a case study of pararubber, the rubber tree, the biomass potential from pararubber tree. And then we will take time to explore around that pararubber, a power plant that uses pararubber, particularly to generate energy, electricity to be precise. And then we also, time permitting us, we'll be looking at pararubber feedstock and circular economy. Okay? Then we'll be able to look at also the advantages and disadvantages of bioenergy generally. All right? So I want to believe you are with me. As I said earlier on, I will try as much as possible to make this presentation as interactive as possible. We need to interact so that we learn maximally. Okay? So please, if you are hearing me, I will appreciate your responses. Talk to me back that, okay, you are hearing me, you can hear me. Okay? Anybody there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We are online already.
Oh, great. Okay. Then let's move on. And by way of introduction, I just want to focus on the topic and talking about the 3 keywords from the topic. That is what we will use to introduce the entire presentation. The term biomass is actually a Greek word. And basically, we know that anything bio means life. And the word mass came from the word massa in Greek. So it entails non-fossilized biodegradable organic material generally that is derived from biological sources. That is what biomass means. You'll be hearing biomass. These are some of the conventional or recent terminologies we have. Particularly many years, centuries ago, we will not be able to, this is not a common term. Okay, so this is what we are talking about today, talking about biomass, biomaterial, organic material. This is a common one we know from biological source. Now, and the second aspect from our topic, we saw that there is energy aspect, biomass energy. That is what we are talking about. Now, energy entails power, okay, that is utilized from physical or chemical resource in this context. Okay, let's take it like that today, and then later on, you have different perceptions about what does it mean by energy. Then we see a resource. When you hear people talking about resource is actually a physical material that has a particular need that human beings need and a value. That is what we refer to as a resource. So when we put all this together, we'll be able to we know that, we are talking about a biological material or biological organic material that has some energy content, that has some power, that has some things in it, some components in it that can make work done. And this material is valued, is needed by human beings and valued by human beings. In a nutshell, that's what we are talking about. Okay, so I told you earlier on, I will be doing a little bit of talking. I want to be as much as possible to do a little bit of talking so that we can talk together. And please, I will suggest, I have already said that, not that you don't know, you know, but for you to know better, I will suggest that please release yourself within the few hours we have, and even in the course of this training from the day one to this point, all through, please release yourself, because we have a lot of, not that you don't know anything, you know a lot. So if you want to know better, please release yourself to unlearn. I'm just suggesting this, unlearn all your learning. If you want to fill to the brim, if you want to be saturated, you need to give some space, create some space within you. So I am suggesting that you try to unlearn and then learn. When you unlearn, you learn. Okay, then you relearn. Somebody sounding, maybe, does that make sense at all? We're talking about 3 things to do here. First, prepare your mind to unlearn rather. After you unlearn, that is, you're creating space to get some more information to add to what you have already. Then you learn. Thereafter, you relearn. After this, you will discover that you have actually learned and you can apply what you've learned. Okay? So, I told you earlier on, I value interaction so much. And so going back to that factor that, okay, everybody knows. Nobody can say that I don't know anything or somebody knows more than me and all that. All that we'll be talking about, please make sure that, be assured that your perception is respected, and please create room within your ability to appreciate and respect other people's opinions or perceptions as well. So we will try to check on our perceptions to see how we look at things. As human beings, we have different ways of looking at things. Okay? So, and all that we are looking at Nobody can say, hey, the other one is wrong or whatever it is. In this training, particularly, in fact, in this session, to be precise, everything you said, it is respected. It will be respected. It is valued. Okay? So let's try to check. What can you see? Can you see my screen? Sorry, I want to be sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Respect perceptions.
Oh, respect perception. Great. Okay. So please, I would like responses from you, all of you. What can you see? Somebody tell me what he's seeing from this screen, from this image.
Sir, you can see two different things. If you look at it from afar, you see an old man looking at an old woman.
Okay.
And if you look at it a little bit closer, you see a man playing a guitar.
Wow.
He's looking and seeing at a woman holding her hat.
Okay.
And if you look even a little bit closer in the ears, you see a woman is stepping out
Wow.
of the man's ears.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's what I can see.
Okay,
so far.
great. Thank you very much for that contribution, sir. And you can see just at a glance, somebody is mentioning already. Sorry, you allow me to be mentioning your names, and then maybe when you are talking, when you are responding, please, you can start by your name, and then don't be offended if I can call you by name and all that. Okay, great.
Oh, sorry, sir. Myself, Michael Belgrave.
Okay, Michael. Okay.
All
Great.
right, sir.
Great.
Yeah, I was the one who just spoke.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Michael, for your submission. Yeah, Michael could see a lot of things just at a glance. So that's what we're talking about. Any other person who has seen what Michael has seen or beyond what he has seen? Yes?
Yes, I have seen also just like Michael, sir.
Okay. Have you seen all the features he described? Have you seen all the features Michael described?
For me, sir, yes. This is Emmeline.
Okay.
I see what he saw.
Okay then. Great. All right. Any other thing that has not been mentioned? Who is seeing a different thing? Emmeline, are you seeing anything different?
I saw what Michael also had seen
All-
a while ago, sir. It's the same.
Okay. Okay. All right. I want to ask, anybody seen anything like a bottle? Bottle.
The bottle look like the woman earring.
Okay. Okay. Somebody is asking me bottle. Somebody is already asking bottle. So, and then already somebody is describing the location. All right. Okay. So, anybody seen any like landscape, like bushy something around the door, for example? Wow. So this is just to try to see.
Before you go, sir, I was waiting to see if anybody said. If you look between the image, it looked like a water setting, a sunset setting there.
Wow.
And just over that, you see like some trees coming down from that
I see.
part there.
I
So
see.
for me, I'm seeing that part being the landscape there, and another part it can look like a stand-light.
Okay.
Based on the angle you put it, it can look like a stand light, and they're looking into each other's face from a stand light, or they're sitting by a waterside,
Okay.
and enjoying the sunset.
Wow, great. You can see the reason for this game I just brought, I'm bringing across to us is just to like energize us and then bring us and prepare us for what we'll be talking about. So what I'm saying, in a concept, in everything, you will discover that people have a different way they look at things. So, but then looking at things differently does not mean that somebody is wrong. Okay? So that is what we should have at the back of our mind. It just depends on how the person looks at what. And when we are talking back to biomass, energy resource, then there are a lot of things people will be talking about, and we need to be open-minded and see how it is in reality in our own thinking, so that if there is any need to add up to what we have, then we add and then make progress. Okay, so basically this is just let's move on. We're talking about overview of renewable energy. This is already what we know, and we've been discussing. I'm sure maybe some of my colleagues ahead of me or that will come hereafter will be talking about this. But particularly, we will be talking about biomass energy here. This is what we are talking about. Basically, these are the common or in a broader sense what we have as renewable energy sources. We have biomass, solar energy, geothermal, wind, and hydropower. Okay, there are other conventional conventional ones that are just belonging into either of these, so to say. So, but in a nutshell, in a broader sense, these are the common, just to refresh our mind. And our focus, as I said, is talking about biomass here. Okay? Now, biomass, we are talking about biomass. The concept of biomass is around this. It's around this. The different biomass sources by concept actually covers, when you think of biomass, when you are talking about biomass, you are actually referring to one or all of this that makes up the concept of biomass. We have agricultural crops, residues, any residue, any part that is not being used, it could be shells, shafts, whatever it is. And then you think of sewage sludge, and all that. Then municipality solid waste, all those our landfills and all that are inclusive here. And then animal waste, then industrial residues. Then particularly, and most importantly, it's not more important. When I say importantly, I'm not saying that it's superior to any of this, but I'm saying importantly because this may be our focus somehow in the course of this. Forestry, crops, and residues. Okay? Putting this all together, that makes up the concept of biomass. When you're talking of biomass is around this and any other. I am not just closing up. Remember, we just talked about perception. So you may have other things that are related, maybe more specific, more than this. So, but if they are related, probably it could be included. Okay? So that is what we are talking about. And as we move on, we'll get to know. And I want to ask, which of these that is common in your own context, where you are, your country or your community, your immediate environment? What do you think, which of these biomass sources or resources are really around you? Hello? Remember, I told you I don't like, I will try to control my talking as much as possible. I want us to be talking together. Which of these is common around you, where you stay? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Julie. Is it Julie or who? Who is there?
Yes, sir. We have wind energy, sources of wind energy.
Okay.
We have also geothermal,
Okay.
and then we have also uh, uh, organic biomass, sir.
Okay. Organic biomass. Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
oh, great.
Especially in the barangay.
Okay. All right. Where are you speaking from? You're speaking in respect of which context? Where? Which country?
This is from Philippines,
The
sir.
Philippines. Okay, the Philippines. Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay. So now, coming back to biomass, to be specific, we're not talking of generally about renewable energy sources. We are specific about biomass now. I am now pointing to all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can you see the different sources of biomass on my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's up there in the screen.
Okay then. So now, please, which one do you have? Which one is common in your own context, wherever you are? Thank you very much for that submission, sir, from the Philippines.
All right, sir. Michael again.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep, Michael, go ahead, please.
Michael again from Guyana. So we have forests.
Oh, great.
We have crops and resources. We have animal residues.
Okay.
I think all of this
Oh,
is around me.
really?
Storage,
Okay.
mechanical solid waste,
All right.
not so much.
Okay.
Industrial residues, not so much. But the
Okay.
rest is sewage, agriculture crop and residue, forestry crop and residue, animal residue.
Oh.
All that is around me.
Oh, great. That's great. That's great. Okay. Thank you very much, Michael. Yep. Any other person?
Yeah, same also in the Philippines, sir. We have
Oh, great.
this biomass.
All right. Which one is more dominant?
I think, sir, the municipal solid waste,
Okay.
and then the animal residues,
Okay.
and also the forestry crops,
Okay. All right. From
agricultural
okay.
residues also.
Okay. As a follow-up, I want to now check and then your immediate. How about your immediate environment? Not at a broader sense, at the country level or something. What I'm saying, where you live at the moment, which one is more dominant or more abundant?
I think the agricultural crops and residues.
Okay. Oh, great. All right. Thank you very much for your submissions. Zara, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Yep. What do you have around you, in your own context, in terms of biomass? What are the? Yep.
I think in cities we have municipal solid waste here.
Okay.
I'm from Iran and
Iran.
Tehran.
Okay. Oh, great.
We have two biomass power plants near Tehran,
Wow.
and they feed municipal solid waste into these power plants and generate electricity.
Oh, great. I see. That's okay. All your submissions, and then you can discover that these are the things we have in common. We're not speaking in abstract. We're not, it's not something that it's not a science. I mean, a rocket science, something that is very complex and all that. Okay, then we can easily connect. All right, let's move on. We want to check at the basic concepts of what we are moving from biomass to some important concepts, because this is what we'll be discussing in the overview of what biomass resources are. And let's take a look at this basic summary of the concept.
Biomass. It sounds complicated, but really it's simple. Biomass can be defined as any organic material or waste that contains chemical building blocks like carbon, hydrogen, and other components that are vital to our modern energy and materials economy. Biomass is the single largest supply of carbon on planet Earth and is a sustainable and renewable source for the products that are currently made from petroleum. Here's how it goes from waste to watts. Trees and plants absorb energy from the sun through photosynthesis.
Okay. Okay, okay. Okay.
Manufacturers. There are several ways to convert biomass into usable energy. It can even be turned into fuels to power cars, trucks, and airplanes. To make fuels, wood is converted first to an intermediary gas or liquid that can be upgraded to make a final product such as gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. It's almost like putting a tree trunk in your gasoline tank. Biomass also includes wastes. There are processes that work for many.
Types of waste biomass, like animal waste. That's right, poop. Believe it or not, poop can be used to make electricity. Manure from farm animals, mostly cows, is put into a big tank called a digester. Like your own gut, a digester has bacteria that eats waste and turns it into methane gas. The methane is burned to heat water. The hot water produces steam. The steam creates pressure that spins a rotor inside a turbine. The turbine powers a generator, and the generator produces electricity. That's it. Methane can also be captured from landfills. When biomass decomposes, it emits a gaseous product called biogas. Biogas is rich in methane, and after some cleanup and upgrading, the methane gas can be captured and burned in the same process to make electricity or to heat your home and cook your food. Biomass can also be used to make products like polymers and plastics that are made from renewable sources of carbon and are either recyclable or biodegradable. This will help solve the problem of plastic waste. Yes, biomass isn't so glamorous, but it is a clean, renewable source of energy and materials that are essential to our modern society. Who knew waste could be a powerhouse?
Okay. Yep. That's it. And I'm sorry, I don't know if you got the audio, everything full and then complete, because we are having some challenges at some point. So that's just to give us the connection between biomass and the energy aspect, okay, as introductory. So quickly at this point, probably before we go to for the first break we'll be taking, I would like us to discuss some things, the basic concepts that has to do with biomass and energy. Then I thought I could have control over the Zoom account, but I couldn't have any. This would have done it just to break out into meetings so that for you to interact as much as possible with other participants and all that. But I don't have control over that at the moment. What we are going to do is that actually this is what I had in mind. We're going to do some discussions around some concepts. So, but then I would have grouped you, but so that you can have some time to discuss together. But I think this is not possible. We will just brainstorm together and let's talk about these concepts. The first one, we're going to talk about what do we understand? What is your own perception or concept of bioenergy? When you hear bioenergy, what do you read out, or what's you process out of that? Okay, are we together?
Yes, sir, we're here.
Yep, great. So let's talk. This was meant to be in groups actually, but the technicalities just failed us somehow. So we can as well discuss this together. Okay. What's your own concept, or what's your own perception about bioenergy? You've been hearing bioenergy, and all that. What does it mean? What does it tell to you?
Okay, bioenergy, when we say bio, means life. For example, referring to plants, for example, where it can produces energy.
Okay.
Like for example, in our recent conducted study about generation of bioelectricity coming from corn waste materials. So after we conducted the study, we generated electricity coming from corn waste materials.
Okay.
Since Philippines is more on agricultural by nature.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that submission, sir. And any other person, remember we see things differently. Okay? So please, any person? Oh, remember, we are no longer having the groupings. Please, we just discuss from here, headlong. We wanted to break out in the meeting, breakout room, have breakout groups, so that you will be able to interact among yourselves. But then, please just bear with us. Let's discuss together. Our hands are tied in terms of technicalities. Okay?
Sir?
So, anybody with a different thinking about what bioenergy is? Somebody spoke to us from the Filipinos' point of view.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please. Who is there?
Yes, Melissa.
Mary?
Melissa.
Melissa. Okay, great. Talk to us.
Yes, from my understanding, from my practice and my work, sir, I understand bioenergy simply as energy produced from highly carbonaceous material, and then when these highly carbonaceous components have already degraded, the output, like for example, can be any gas like methane. This can be used to power any mechanism to produce energy like heat or steam. So
Okay.
that's
All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. The second aspect, the second concept I want us to see or maybe discuss, because when putting this together, we'll be able to know a lot of things and then connect a lot of things about biomass and energy. So how about biofuels? What's your own concept of biofuels? Biofuels? Hello?
Sir, biofuels will be things like ethanol and stuff we produce from the sugarcane.
Okay.
The clarifications. Whatever the fuel that you or when we talk about biofuel, we're talking about the product or the produce from the bioenergy in terms of like the waste.
Okay.
When you see waste or you see like an animal in Guyana, if we see an animal defecate or mess with the waste from an animal, you look at it as something that is scornful, is something that you shouldn't be around. Whereas that is something that could actually be used to produce the form of bioenergy. The product from that I would consider to be
Okay.
And I might be open with for the biofuel. It will come under the biofuel category to an extent.
Okay then. Thank you very much, Michael, and that's a good one. Then I want to check: is any of us from Africa at the moment that is awake and is in this class? Anybody from Africa? Africa? Hello? You are not giving me an answer. Maybe just wave at me. I mean, just say hello. Wow, it's still night. I don't know, maybe we are not having many people, some people from Africa from there. Okay then, thank you for that submission, Michael. And we're talking about products. He mentioned something very important, products from biomass. Okay, so you should be able now, with all the submissions, we should be able to know that we now know that, okay, there is a little distinction or a kind of way of putting things in different perspective between bioenergy and biofuels, because oftentimes people use these terms interchangeably, but then with an open mind you should be able to know that, okay, this is where these are not really put together, the concepts are not put together. The other one is just basically the general concept, energy that has to do with biomass, but the other one has to it's talking about fuels, products gotten, refined, or maybe like processed. Okay? And then thirdly, we want to talk about this. How about this? Yep, who is there? Anybody there? Biorefinery. Somebody is saying, wow. What about that?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. I think biorefinery is a place of a process to produce bioenergy.
Okay.
It can from biofuel,
Okay.
maybe and the byproducts integrated in one place.
All right. Oh, great. Integrated in one place. Oh, great. Thank you. That is the keyword there. Yes, anybody?
Yes, sir. This is Emeline.
Okay, Emeline.
From the Philippines.
All right, great.
Biorefinery is a facility where there is conversion of the biomass into energy. It's just a facility for this energy conversion.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, that is that. And then, can we have another person? Anybody with a contrary perception or different perception, rather, not contrary? Anybody? Okay, let's move on from here. Actually, this is what we are to do. From all that they said, submissions from Michael, Emmeline, and other people there, and all that, I want to know from their submission, who do you think is wrong? Who was wrong?
No one.
How? What do you mean?
There is no one wrong.
Okay, in this
It's
scenario,
just how we see it.
okay, it's just how we see it, right? All right.
Yes.
It's just how we see it. So there is no cause for us to be arguing. This is this is that, and all that. It's just the way it appeared to you. Okay? And then there is always a meeting point. There is always a common ground and a base for all our perceptions and all that. All right? Same thing Among these people, who is wrong? Anybody wrong? Okay, so in reality, in fact, reality can be so complex that equally valid observations from different perspectives can appear to be contradictory. So that is how alive is. This is just to energize us in a way as well, and then let us know that your opinion or your perception should be respected, and others should be respected, just depending on how they look at where they are standing, their direction, and whatever in life generally. Okay, so let's move on from here, and we're discussing key concepts. We've already discussed this. This is just to add to us, to what we're talking about initially. So somebody said, based on his own perception, that bioenergy refers to electricity and gas from biomass. When you talk of bioenergy, you're actually talking about electricity and gas from biomass, for example. Then, in another perspective, somebody says bioenergy is talking about fuels from organic matter. Okay, that's somebody's submission. And then to somebody, he puts it in another way that, as a storage house of bioenergy, the person is referring to biomass. Biomass can be considered as the nature's solar batteries. Okay, nature's solar batteries. You know what we use our normal batteries to do? What are they used for? To conserve or to preserve, to store a captured energy. So somebody is putting it in a way that bioenergy has to do with biomass because of that energy that has been stored, been conserved in the biomaterials. Okay? So just to add to what we've already said, and then somebody says that it's about electricity, heat, biofuels, and products, and other products. Not only to energy aspect. Another aspect is coming in now. All right? So, in bioenergy, we have the fact still remains that in bioenergy concept, we have different feedstock sources. The real material that can be now processed into bioenergy. Okay, these are a range of these, and we've already discussed some of these things, I think, from the beginning. Some of us gave some examples around that. Think about wood, agricultural, and some industry, particularly like fisheries and all that is really predisposed to giving a lot of waste and all that. And all waste treatment plants or facilities, you can get biomass, feedstock for bioenergy production, wastewater, sewage sludge, and all that. And there are some specific crops. They call them energy crops. Naturally, they have been made to conserve energy in many of their storing parts and all that. They are specifically referred to as energy crops. Okay, this is where we get our feedstock from. Then, this is just like a follow-up as well. When we talk about biomass, these are different aspects. This is more detailed, more specific, and giving us more idea of a range of materials that talks into what bioenergy is all about. Okay, we see a range of things here, from lignocellulosic and then solid waste, wood, and herbaceous energy crops. I mentioned that oil energy from crops, seeds particularly, and then starch, other like forest, wood, and all that industrial products. So these are a range of bioenergy feedstocks. We can get feedstocks from that. Then secondly, we've already discussed these things. It's just for me to go over them. And talking about biofuels, to somebody, you just fuel from biomass. Fuel, whatever fuel what is this to this person, to this school of thought, whatever you think is a fuel, the one you get from biomass is a biofuel. All right. Then this other school of thought says it's also a fuel that is produced through a contemporary process from biomass. This meaning there are some innovations that have not been in place before this time. Necessity has brought about some innovations that can harness a fuel from biomass, and that makes it fuel. That is okay. And then one key thing to know is that this concept of biofuels is that we should know, always remember that energy is contained in raw materials like plants and all that. And that energy came from the sun. Maybe we know that through a process, photosynthesis. I think the short clip showed us gave us some clue about what photosynthesis is all about, what it does and all that. Probably in the course of the discussion, we will also look at that carefully, And then I think I've mentioned this earlier on. Photosynthesis stores energy in plants. So anything you see plant, biomass, just think it as it being containing or is a repository or something that has a deposit, the potentiality of energy. There is energy in it. That's the point. There are some level of energy that is contained in biomass, biomaterial. That is the idea. So when you try to bring out, to harness that potential energy into more useful and reality, that it becomes a biofuel. Okay? So these are just different sources of biofuels. Sugar crops, all these sugar crops, sugar cane, sugar beet, corn, maize, and other starches can be fermented, which are into ethanol. And some of us have mentioned that, oil seeds, oil plants, oil crops can also be burned to produce power. Some diesel engines burn through this. And wood is also a kind of source of biofuel. Okay, and then talking about wood as well. So these are some of the feedstocks or materials that biofuel can be generated from. All right. So the whole thing is, these are some of the processes that those feedstocks are subjected to in the process of making biofuels. In a general concept, these are the things that it follows to be able to arrive at biofuels. filtration, water removal, titration, sodium, the addition of some base, and then heating, mixing, and settling, separation, and all that. The technology is not, the main thing is how this is done and all that. It's not the focus here. We'll just try to know the concept. These things are subjected to these processes, and then to yield the biofuels we're talking about. Okay. Biorefinery, on the other hand, quickly I'll just run through this. I think somebody has said this to somebody. Biorefinery is a facility that integration of conversion processes, biomass conversion processes, to produce fuels, power, and chemicals. This is somebody, this as far as concerned, I think somebody mentioned this also in our session, in our class here, that it's a facility that integrates. So the main thing in a biorefinery is just like the concept of the petroleum refinery. Some of us that are conversant with that, what happens in a petroleum refinery where a range of products are produced, that same thing, the same principle happens in a biorefinery. Okay? Then, according to the International Energy Agency, it's a biorefinery actually is a sustainable biomass processing. Sustainable. At this point, I think we've analyzed this so much, know what sustainability is all about. I think in the previous sessions, one of my colleagues that talks about, I'm sure, when we are discussing about sustainable development, we should have defined sustainability. So in this case, sustainable biomass processing to bring about or to yield a range of products, not only energy related, biomaterials. This is a more broader, giving us more broader picture of what a biorefinery can be. Okay? And then bioenergy products that we've mentioned. So that is that about a biorefinery at that point, but then in a follow-up, this is what it means. And as I said earlier on, we'll be taking a break in the next 2 minutes, and then for half an hour, then we come back and continue. Okay, so the concept of biorefinery is just around this. The three key things that result from a biorefinery: fuels, biochemicals, and then biomaterials. You can see these are the key things in a facility that is in the same place. All this in a concept. In concept, this is actually what it means. To be able to, the facility will be in place. This from the same facility, biomass feedstock is fed into it, and it is able to bring about fuels and energy, biochemicals, and biomaterials. That is what we mean by biorefinery. Okay? Are we there?
Still with you, sir. We're still here.
Okay. So please, some of you that are just waking up from your sleep, go and then, just freshen up and what have you, and then in the next 30 minutes, we come back and continue from here. How about that?
Okay, sir.
How about that?
Okay, sir.
Great. Thank you. I will see you then.
In 30 minutes, sir. 30 minutes.
30 minutes, yep.
Thank you.
Great. Ready?
Okay, ready.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome you back. Hello. Are we together?
Yeah, we're still here, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. We move on from here. So you see something now?
Yes.
You cannot hear, right?
Okay, good.
Can you hear?
World
Yes,
demand for energy, chemicals, materials and products is increasing every year. Current production systems and consumption patterns are unsustainable. And so the global challenge is to meet demand through increasingly sustainable sources. To this end, we believe biomass has a unique role to play. Biomass is a sustainable source of resources that can be pre-treated, converted, and refined to produce fuel, chemicals for product manufacture, heat, and electricity. The benefits of harnessing biomass are immense. For a start, it will invigorate farming and rural communities. It will reduce CO2 emissions from fossil fuels. It will encourage biodiversity and sustainability, and will improve the security of energy and fuel supplies. Under the biomass umbrella is a wide array of organic sources, including willow, straw, miscanthus grass, residue from forest management, and even the byproducts of manufacturing such as food or sawmill waste. These sources can be harvested by felling, chipping, combine harvesting, cutting, and clearance. Once harvested, they need transporting to where they can be pre-treated. There are two main routes when it comes to processing biomass, either biological or thermochemical. These processes are at the core of the Biomass Energy project, which the European Commission has sponsored. The biological process firstly involves pre-treatment, in which the biomass is received, handled, stored, dried, and reduced in size. Next, hemicellulose and cellulose are converted by a process of hydrolysis using acid or enzymes. This creates sugars, which are fermented to produce a dilute product from which ethanol is separated. The ethanol produced can then be used as a fuel in its own right, a fuel additive, an industrial solvent, or processed as a petrochemical to produce other specialty and commodity chemicals, which can be used to make a wide range of consumer products. A byproduct of hydrolysis is lignin, which is used in the production of transport fuels and specialty and commodity chemicals. The thermochemical processing is different in that high temperatures are involved, but again involves pre-treatment in which the biomass is received, handled, stored, dried, and reduced in size. It then goes through one of three different types of thermochemical processing: combustion, gasification, or pyrolysis. Combustion is used to generate heat, which produces steam, and this in turn drives turbines to generate power. Gasification turns biomass into fuel gas or synthesis gas. Fuel gas is used to generate power and heating, while synthesis gas is used to manufacture synthetic transport fuels and bulk chemicals, which can then be refined to produce specialty chemicals, chemicals such as polymers used in the manufacture of consumer goods. Pyrolysis encompasses a number of varying processes. Fast pyrolysis produces high yields of a high-energy liquid that is cost-efficient to handle and transport. This can be used directly for heat and power, or to produce chemicals such as adhesive resins for wood panels. It can also be processed further by gasification. Low-temperature pyrolysis, or torrefaction, also prepares biomass for gasification and improves its quality. Various other forms of pyrolysis, intermediate and slow pyrolysis, also produce gas liquids and solid that can be used in analogous applications such as acetic acid. So, what do these conversion and upgrading processes actually produce? For a start, they produce heat and power, either for industrial and domestic use, or for use in the biomass conversion and upgrading processes. Secondly, they produce transport fuels, either by blending bioethanol with fuel, or using it as a fuel in its own right, or by using hydrocarbons to produce synthetic diesel and gasoline. Thirdly, they produce specialty and commodity chemicals which can be used to manufacture a wide range of products for use in industry and ultimately in consumer goods. It's essential, of course, that we get the most effective output from processing biomass. And to achieve this, we need to look at integrating the biomass processes in order to optimize the range of products they generate. In essence, this means developing integrated biorefineries capable of producing a similar range of products to those produced by conventional petrochemical refineries. The concepts we develop for biorefineries also need to be as cost competitive as possible. And this can be achieved by using as much of the biomass as possible. One aim is a design for an integrated lignocellulose biorefinery based on the straw-based bioethanol demonstration plant of Abengoa Bioenergy in Salamanca, Spain. An example is provided in this diagram. At present, we are evaluating 5 different methods of straw pre-treatment for the production of fermentable sugars, each differing in performance and cost. The optimal process will depend on the processing destination of the fractions and the envisaged end products. As well as producing ethanol by fermentation, we are also investigating other biochemical processes that produce acetone, butanol, and other platform chemicals. Another idea is the development of thermochemical conversion integrated with separation technologies. For example, thermal conversion by gasification produces synthesis gas, which can be converted into ethanol, methanol, diesel, and gasoline. Thermal conversion by pyrolysis produces a liquid oil, which can be used as an energy carrier that can be upgraded into refinery feedstock material for the production of transport fuels, and can be used as a source of commodity and specialty chemicals. A key byproduct from bioethanol production is lignin, and we are investigating this as a feedstock for resins and phenol for polymer synthesis, while potential chemicals from the hemicellulose fraction include surfactants and furfural. At present, we are evaluating all these process concepts in order to identify the most promising biorefinery chains in terms of performance, energy efficiency, environmental performance, cost, and socio-economic contributions. This will entail several of the best performing biorefinery processes being tested at pilot plant scale. It all sounds workable. But there are a number of challenges ahead if we are to seriously consider biomass as a sustainable energy source for the future. For example, where do we source biomass without damaging local economies and areas set aside for food production and feedstock? How do we reduce processing costs? And how do we integrate products into the supply chain and get them to consumers? How do we go about producing multiple products, making the whole process more cost efficient? And what is the overall life cycle impact, taking into account use of land, cost of processing, the carbon footprint, and the socio-economic benefits? These are the challenges Biosynergy needs to overcome if we are to optimize the range of products that can be derived from a biorefinery and provide future generations with a viable and sustainable biomass resource. The Biosynergy Consortium consists of 17 complementary partners with a high level of
Okay. So I will be.
The term biomass refers to all sorts of
So
living
this
matter,
is not
whether
the ticket
natural,
version.
grown,
Not
and bred, as
you
well as
see
their
now.
residues. Biomass is essential to human beings. For thousands of years, people have used biomass as a source of energy. In the 20th century, oil has made life easier. But the negative side is that nature or the environment is seriously affected. Would the solution today consist in reverting back to basic energies, such as the sun and biomass? And if we do this, what would the cost be? Recent technologies can convert biomass into hydrocarbon within a few hours. The willingness to change is therefore mainly a matter of commitment. To what extent can biomass replace fossil fuels? What are the benefits for the environment, for society, for climate change? In 1 year, humankind consumes the equivalent of 12 billion tons of oil. In 1 year, the solar energy received by the Earth is equivalent to 90,000 billion tons of oil, and the energy stored in biomass growth amounts to 72 billion tons. All the energy needs of humankind in a year could be met by collecting an hour of sunlight, or 1/6 of the biomass production. Yet renewable energies only account for 13% of the global energy package, which is dominated by non-renewable energies: oil, coal, gas, and nuclear power. Biomass is number one, far ahead of hydropower, wind, solar energy, geothermal, and tidal power together. Biomass, which is at the beginning of the food chain, is also at the beginning of the energy chain. Photosynthesis is a biological process that enables plants to synthesize their own organic matter from atmospheric carbon dioxide, CO2, and water. Photosynthesis mainly produces sugars. For example, 6 CO2 molecules and 6 water molecules are needed to produce 1 molecule of glucose. The reaction also produces 6 molecules of oxygen. CO2, mainly responsible for the greenhouse effect, is thus trapped in solid form within the organic matter. For the loss in organic matter due to breathing. Growth only occurs if the amount of organic matter produced by photosynthesis exceeds the amount needed for breathing. At night, only breathing takes place. Lastly, plant decay in the open air obeys the same law as that of breathing. Now, let's have a look at the life cycle of a tree. The young tree stores more and more carbon. As it grows older, its breathing catches up with its synthesis of organic matter. Consequently, carbon storage declines. The tree dies. As it decomposes, it releases all the carbon it will have stored in its lifetime. It is therefore a carbon sink and a source of carbon. Over its whole life, the net result is zero. The tree has stored or produced no carbon, and it has not stored or produced oxygen either. In order to limit the greenhouse effect by stocking a maximum amount of carbon, there is thus an optimum age at when the tree should be cut down and replaced with a sapling. If the tree is burned instead of being allowed to decay, we find the same result, but the reaction is faster. If this decay takes place in the absence of oxygen, for instance in a rainforest swamp, the tree will produce methane. Methane is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. So in its whole life cycle, the impact of this tree will have been negative because it has produced greenhouse gases. By playing a part in natural systems, humankind can therefore control the reabsorption of atmospheric CO2 and limit the emission of greenhouse gases.
Dans la gestion forestière, on a un âge
not included in official statistics. On a global scale, the carbon flow stocked by biomass is about 62 billion tons a year. This carbon is considered as circulating because a major part of it goes back into the atmosphere due to the decay of biomass. Photosynthesis is the driving force of this carbon cycle. Related to this main cycle, there are other lesser ones. Atmospheric carbon is on a balance with the carbon dissolved in water. Part of this dissolved carbon sediments, while sedimentary limestone is burned by volcanoes and returns to the atmosphere. Finally, a tiny fraction of biomass will be gradually fossilized, but it will require millions of years for this biomass to be turned into coal, oil, and natural gas. From the industrial era onwards in the 1850s, human beings began to draw from fossil fuels. The burning of these resources provoked additional CO2 emission into the atmosphere. Deforestation and the use of limestone, for example for the manufacturing of cement, also generate CO2 emission into the atmosphere. Humankind thus releases a new source of CO2 called anthropogenic CO2. This flow of carbon released into the atmosphere brings about an imbalance because it is too large to be absorbed by natural phenomena. Thus, the concentration of atmospheric carbon that had been stable for years has been increasing since the first industrial revolution. This has increased and continues to increase the greenhouse effect. By capturing and releasing CO2, the plant creates a flow of carbon. The whole biomass is a stock of carbon. The flow and the stock are related. On Earth, the carbon stock is divided between 4 reservoirs. The atmosphere, 750 billion tons of carbon, mainly in the form of carbon dioxide. The biosphere, which represents the organic carbon of biomass, 1/4 of it is alive, and 3/4 is dead or decaying. The hydrosphere, water, contains dissolved carbon. The lithosphere, the underground rocks, contains most of the carbon as a mineral. There are rocks of organic origin, coal, oil, and natural gas, called fossil fuels, all created by the fossilization of the biomass. There are also limestone rocks, formed by the sedimentation of shells and the precipitation of dissolved carbon. The amount of carbon that can still be released into the atmosphere is enormous. Populations are not equal with respect to their energy consumption. There are large consumers. They consume 10 times more than small consumers. And there are average consumers. Of course, the larger consumers could consume less, but they are very few. In fact, areas where energy consumption per person is the lowest are the most populated, have the strongest population growth, have the highest increase in energy consumption. But these consumers consume so little that it is difficult to ask them to consume less. So even with a balanced consumption of around 2.5 tons of oil per person per year, more energy will have to be produced, all the more so as the world population keeps increasing. In order to achieve sustainable energy consumption, energy production should not resort to using energy stocks, but to using energy flows. We should no longer draw on fossil fuels or trees, but capture rather solar energy, wind energy, or the flow of biomass production instead. We must use energies that are able to be renewed as fast as we consume them, that is, renewable energies. The use of biomass consists in diverting part of the cyclic carbon towards human activity. Once consumed, this carbon returns to the cycle it would have had if humans had not intervened. That is to say, there is no further emission into the atmosphere. On the contrary, what is taken from the biomass saves fossil fuels and accordingly reduces emission into the atmosphere. But biomass production, transformation, and transportation have an energy cost. The economy in greenhouse gas should then be calculated over the entire cycle. Shortened circuits that already exist in the food economy also have a part to play in energy production. The following experiment started in the town of Villeneuve in France in 2005.
Fuel.
Oh, I couldn't get the...
In 1900, Rudolf Diesel devised his engine to work with vegetal oil. He thought he would revolutionize agriculture because he would make farmers self-sufficient on energy, and they would even become energy producers. Before 2008, easily transformable substrates were used, often foodstuff, sugar and vegetable oil, in order to obtain ethanol and methyl esters. These were the first-generation biofuels. In 2008, the food shortage broke out. It emphasized the awareness that non-food biomass should be used to produce biofuels. These were the second-generation biofuel. The second-generation biofuels used lignocellulose as a raw material. Lignocellulose is the main component of plants. Its transformation thus enables us to use entire plants rather than storage organs alone. The nature of the energy produced depends on the use we want to make of it. We distinguish static use from mobile use. Static use energy is consumed in a fixed place. Mobile use energy is employed to move vehicles. Only a quarter of the energy is used for mobile use, but it is the most problematic energy because it has to be carried within the vehicle. The main constraint is to go far with a low volume of fuel. A lot of renewable energy is produced in the form of heat and electricity. It is difficult to store heat and electricity. Therefore, they are mainly used for static use. The characteristic of biomass is that it is available in a material form, which gives it the advantage of being easily stored. Among the energies that can be easily stored, thus offering the strongest energy content, what we call calorific value, are preferable. The higher the calorific value is, the further we can go. Biomass, wood, has a low calorific value, 16 megajoules per kilo. Besides, the solid form of wood is ill-adapted to power an engine. Gases are used as mobile use energy, methane and hydrogen. They have a very high energy content. But the storage of these gases is still cumbersome and eventually limits vehicle autonomy. Yet hydrogen would be an ideal fuel because its combustion does not release CO2. Enriched uranium has a calorific value of about 500,000 megajoules per kilo. A kilogram of uranium would allow a car to run 200,000 kilometers, but in civilian life, the best adapted energy for mobility is thus in a liquid form. It is then called fuel and biofuel when the resource is biosourced and not a fossil fuel. Liquid biofuels are already part of everyday life. Ethanol is mixed with petrol. Pure vegetable oil is also used. But petrol and diesel, with a calorific value of 43 megajoules per kilo, surpasses all liquid fuels. The fuels with the highest calorific value contain the least oxidized molecules, i.e., those with the lowest proportions of oxygen. Petrol and diesel do not contain oxygen atoms, but only hydrogen and carbon atoms. They are hydrocarbons. Nowadays, transport uses half of the crude oil produced. The reason for this is that it contains hydrocarbon molecules which do not explode, and it has a high calorific value. Therefore, what is at stake here is to produce a new generation of liquid hydrocarbons from biomass instead. It has taken nature millions of years to produce hydrocarbons. Are we able to do that successfully in a few hours?
La voie microbienne est une
is a complex entanglement of macromolecules. Thousands of glucose molecules are bound together in linear chains to form a molecule of cellulose. Cellulose forms cable-like filaments known as fibrils. Linen is like a corset that stiffens the cellulose network and brings solidity and impermeability to vegetable cells. Hemicellulose binds cellulose molecules and lignin. This structure makes biomass highly resistant. This is the difficulty with second-generation biofuels. How can we deconstruct lignocellulose to obtain simple molecules that could be used by traditional chemistry? The stakes are of the utmost importance. In the first-generation processes, simple cold pressing would enable us to extract sugar or oil. The second-generation processes are far more complicated. We distinguish microbial methods from thermal methods. After chemical treatment, the microbial methods use enzymes which selectively split up macromolecules into simple sugars. Among other things, we can collect the glucose molecules from the cellulose. The thermal methods, which are more drastic, pulverize all the lignocellulose macromolecules into simple molecules, hydrogen and carbon monoxide. Nowadays, technologies have improved and allow us to use the byproducts of agriculture as well as the products and byproducts of forestry. This resource, rich in lignocellulose, led to the second-generation biofuels. The cultivation of microalgae has led to third-generation biofuels. Microalgae produces sugars and oils with yields per hectare that could be 10 times as high as those of land crops. These techniques are quite recent, and their industrialization is still in progress. Lastly, there is the issue of waste. Wet waste can be methanized to obtain biogas and provide gas, heat, and electricity for the energy networks. Dry residues, in the form of lignocellulose, enable us to produce biofuels. Burning wood allows us to proceed directly from the energy resource to the energy use, heat. But generally, a transformation process is needed to convert the resource into a specific energy use. It is in the biorefineries that this transformation takes place. If we consider mobile use, The most favorable solution of the moment are found in second-generation biofuels. We estimate that, compared to fossil fuels, first-generation biofuels reduce greenhouse gases by 30%. Second-generation biofuels reduce them by between 70 to 90%. This reduced impact is because these resources already exist. Often, all we have to do is harvest them. But to launch an industry, raw materials must not only be available in sufficient quantity, but must also be sustainable. Is this the case? Around the globe, land areas represent 14.9 billion hectares. 10% of this surface is occupied by farmland, 23% is pasture, 26% is forest. Everything else is desert or built-up areas. This means that biomass covers about 60% of the land. Yet plants don't grow everywhere at the same speed. We can access these differences by measuring the net primary production. It is the mass of organic matter synthesized per square meter and per year. On land, organic matter develops 5 times faster in tropical areas than in temperate areas. The net primary production varies according to a series of factors, including light intensity, water, temperature, and the concentration of CO2. We could almost say that thanks to the CO2 released by humankind, plants grow faster. Let's take the example of forests. They produce per hectare and per year 2 cubic meters in the far north, from 5 to 20 cubic meters in temperate and dry tropical areas, from 50 to 100 cubic meters in wet tropical areas. Currently, the average rate of wood harvesting is 1 cubic meter per hectare per year. Let's imagine that we took 2 cubic meters instead of 1 cubic meter. This alone would correspond to 8% of humankind's energy consumption. In particular, unused wood debris left to rot in forests already represents 60% of the available biomass. In the countries where forests are managed, they are expanding without fertilizer and without irrigation.
Globalement, on considère l'objectif de gestion, c'est pour soit votre cheminée, soit la chaufferie locale. Donc vous voyez que finalement les
Autonomy. The same is true for food autonomy. Solutions have to be found. Researchers are working on them. But it is a global social project that must be set in motion. We have to reconcile the natural advantages offered by the soil, climate, and the location with biodiversity and employment. This is necessary to provide humankind with sustainable sources of food, material, and energy.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've had a long watching and listening and all that. So please, for us to be able to grasp and then get some things from what we've been hearing, can we respond to this quickly? What can you remember from the documentaries about biomass energy and all that, biofuels? What can you remember? In one word? One word? Yes, please, go ahead.
I just want to mention what is something new from the documentary. Actually, I haven't had the idea about the life cycle of the tree in terms of carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Actually, it was new to me that it is yet better to cut the tree before it decays,
Okay.
when it gets older, so that the carbon dioxide won't be going back to the atmosphere.
Oh, great.
So that is something very new for
Thank you.
me. So it does mean the the farm for making lag is also beneficial to us,
Okay.
so that we can reduce the going back of carbon dioxide to that.
It's all right.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we need to determine the optimum level, the optimum age or stage of the plant with 3 growths before we now may cut it down, not allowing it. Thank you very much for that submission. Yes. What did you learn? Anybody wants to share? What did you remember? What is new? What was new? What did you learn? One. Remember I said we need to interact. Anybody? Nobody is responding. Okay, let's move on. I want to believe maybe we check later. These resources are there on the portal. You can always access them and then get a closer look at them and then get some learning. Okay, so thank you. Let's move on. We are looking at the second aspect of our topic today, and then this one will quickly tell you the case study of what we have here in Thailand when it comes to biomass, particularly with special interest in Pararoba. This is what we have. I don't know in your own case what is the most abundant biomass resource in your own case, in your countries. Michael, what do you have as a source of biomass, living biomass, that is most abundant? Anybody? Melissa? Zara? Emmeline?
Come again, sir?
Yes.
My background here is just a bit noisy.
Okay. I said, for us in southern part of Thailand, what we have as one of those most abundant living biomass is Pararoba, rubber tree. So I am asking, how is it in your own countries? What are those? What are the plant biomass sources that you are having in abundance more than any other one?
Hello, this is Zahra.
Yes, please.
I don't have any information, but I can search and tell the audience.
Okay, all right, great. So, but observe around and see in your country context to know what are those things you have in abundance. For us in this part of the world and the country, particularly in the southern part of Thailand, this is what you see in common. You move like 50 kilometers, hardly will you pass 50 kilometers in this part of the country without seeing plantations of Pararoba plantations. These are so abundant here. Okay? So, Michael, what do you have in your area? What is so common? Remember, we are talking about not risking food. Okay? This, in our own case here, in the case study of Thailand, this, we want to capitalize on Pararoba to see the feedstock we can get from it at the same time, I mean to generate energy, at the same time not risking food security. Okay? All right, let's move on. This resource, Pararoba, globally, this is how it looks like. You can see the Philippines. Are we there? Hello? Philippines?
Yeah, we are here.
Okay. So, and this is globally, this is the distribution of this resource, particular resource, Pararoba, talking about Pararoba. And in Thailand, you can see in the southern part of this country, this is where you have most of the concentration of this resource. Okay, I'm speaking to you from this point. Songkla is around here, and you can see this is an abundant resource we are having around here. Okay, so quickly, what are the things we can see from the various aspects of the pararoba you can leverage upon? In biomass analysis or estimations, we have the above ground and then the below ground. Now basically we are talking here about the above ground biomass production from a pararoba tree, for example. These are different components we have. We have the seeds, we have the leaves, we have wood, latex is also gotten from here, and then the barks. So you can see that virtually everything that is above the ground, we are exploring avenues to see how can we utilize this thing, sustainably, because this particular resource is very key to the economic system in this place. Okay, so you can as well begin to think of, that's why I asked you a question earlier on, that do we have, you determine the most abundant bioresource in your own context and see how it can be leveraged upon to harness energy and other valuables. Okay, quickly, the scenario of, we have a scenario of pararoba biomass to power in Patalung, one of our provinces in the southern part of Thailand. They call it Patalung Green Power, GPG. They have a small plant, as you can see there. We try to get some documentary from them and also go there to do some documentary of a video to show you. But it has not been that easy because of our situation now. You can see even at this point you have to max up and then a lot of other things like that. So this is how the plan have been able to get the setup. This is how it looks like. But I will try to show us also as well the a kind of prototype happens there, that energy can be generated from biomass. In this particular case, they use the rubber stump. The stump, after the rubber tree has finished yielding latex around the age of 25 to 30 years old. At that point, the latex production has reduced drastically, and the main thing at that point is the tree or the plantation will be cleared. And when the plantation is cleared and harvested for wood, that will be channeled into other parts of industry and what have you to create new products. The stump that is still remaining in the ground, that is what this power plant leverage on to generate as much as these megawatts of electricity that is channeled to the national grid, and then a lot of benefit. That is the scenario around here. So as I told you earlier on, just to showcase to you the processes inside the plant, but we've not been able to, but the prototype example of what happens inside there, that is what we want to showcase to you here. The main thing is around this. Basically, the plant will have several components: heat exchanger, high pressure boiler, turbine, and then generator, the condenser. These are the basic components. So at the combustion chamber, what happens there? There is a burning of the stock, the feedstock, and then releasing hot gases. These gases now heats up the water, and then the gases then will be treated before being released back into the air. In their own case, they use a system called ESP that they treat the gases that are being released from here, and other people utilize the ash after the burning and everything in other construction materials, concrete mix and all that. So they try to make the system in this plan to be so sustainable, circular in nature. Okay, so eventually, the process between the energy changing from one form to the other. So, and the more solid has some energy, gains some energy, it goes to liquid. From liquid, when there is more energy, what happens? Matter, a state of matter will change to what? Gaseous. So when there is gaseous and with addition of energy, what happens? It goes to the plasma state. So this is the same principle that works here. You feed in the stones, solid, bonds, and then all those generating liquids and all that, and then the liquids goes into gaseous state. Then in the process, coming into plasma in the electrical form. So basically these are the main thing. In these components, in this setup, the high pressure steam will enter the turbine, and then it will propel the blades, the turbine blades, which are connected to the generator that rotates the generator, and then electricity is generated eventually. So that is the system. We will not be able to see this. This is just a prototype. Okay, as I said earlier on, what happens in there.
A biomass power plant generates electricity using the heat generated by the combustion of organic materials, such as plant residues, household waste, and the biogas resulting from waste fermentation. All of these are renewable energy sources available in large quantities. The fuel is brought to the boiler. It is then introduced into the combustion chamber where it releases heat as it burns. This in turn heats water in tubes that line the boiler. The hot water is then sent to a tank where it turns into steam. The steam drives a turbine which turns a generator. In the generator, the interaction between the electromagnets of the moving rotor and the copper coils of the stationary stator produces an electric current. A transformer is used to increase the voltage of this current to 225,000 or 400,000 volts. This makes it easier to transport in the network's very high voltage lines. The steam leaving the turbine passes through a condenser in which cold water circulates. This cools the steam, turning it back into water. It is then sent back to the boiler. This steam can also be used either for industrial activities or to supply an urban heating network. This simultaneous production of electricity and heat in a single facility is called combined heat and power. Finally, the fumes released by combustion are filtered before being evacuated through stacks. Often installed in very close proximity to material production or storage sites, biomass power plants can be used continuously to meet electricity needs whatever the day of the year. They produce regular energy with low CO2 emissions.
Okay, that's it. This is actually what happens in there, and for us in our own case, the PGB has been utilizing this process to generate power from biomass. Basically, from that point that it will be inconveniencing so to say, the stump, what is left on the surface after cutting the so-called economically important part of the tree. Okay, so that is how it works in here. Mind you, I have already mentioned that, and that because we don't have time, would have gone through other processes of conversion of biomass feedstock. Where we talk about pyrolysis, gasification, and biological conversion. I have some clips already in the portal. You can access those and check and see how that works. And particularly, I told you, interaction is what I am so particular about here. Okay, so we have already looked at a case study. We're still considering, still exploring para-rubber as a feedstock. Another concept comes in here called circular economy. Any idea? Anybody with an idea of circular economy? What's your perception about circular economy? Circular economy.
Have a closed loop.
Okay.
It starts somewhere and circulates and return to the same point.
Okay. Start somewhere, move somewhere, and then returns to the point, to the starting point. Okay. That's a kind of economic system in terms of economy, right? It is opposing to the linear system of economy. Linear means just harvest, utilize, drop the waste. It is gone. The end of that thing has ended there. But contrary to that, there is another concept called circular economy. And this is one of those sustainability initiatives or concepts that are being driven all over the world in the economic or development sector, that every nation is clamoring for, to see how they can transit from the linear system of economy to a circular system of economy. And then for us here, we're already thinking and then strategizing to see what are the things do we have around, because this economic system requires a biological aspect and then the technical aspect. So we've already started in our faculty here, we've started thinking of, okay, what are the biological feedstock that we have around that is so abundant that can be tied into that has the capacity to affect or influence any transition into circular economy. So we're trying to look at the circular economy of a rubber tree, the para-rubber. That's how we tie it here. In your own situation, you begin to think of any bio resource that can be tied to an economy and what is the circularity of it, just like somebody said to us. So in our own case, we just see that, okay, if you have this, you cultivate, it can be harvested and transported, treated. This is a prototype, a kind of example, a setup that a rubber tree can undergo to be beneficial, to influence, to affect the economy, coupled with other factors of developmental factors to really make meaning, to make more sense to the population and the society at large. In our own case, you can see here some of these in a biorefinery setup from a tree or rubber tree. We will be able to get, again, remember this, biochemicals, can get polymers, feedstock for additives of other things, and then energy carriers like these chips, wood shavings and all that. All those are energy carriers. Okay? So, and other things can be processed, post-processing plants where you can get biogas, biofertilizer additive, this biofertilizer can still come back to the plantation, okay, and run into the system. So basically, this is how we run our own here, okay. So quickly, we want to rush to the last part of this. I think from our content, we were to discuss this, go into groups, but then we are being constrained by our technicalities and some other challenges. Okay, so but then we can still brainstorm around this and bring out issues, and then we see how we can be beneficial to each other in learning. The first thing is that, what do you think are the advantages of bioenergy? We've discussed bioenergy extensively. What are the advantages? Let's talk.
First, it's a cleaner form of energy, sir.
Okay, clean form of energy. All right, cleanliness, yes. Yeah, any other thing? What do you think? People, are they here? Are you with us? Oh, it's already night somewhere. Julie, Rodley, Augustine, are you there? What are the advantages?
Hello, sir?
Yes, please.
I'm here.
Yes. What are the advantages of bioenergy that we've been discussing? What do you think? Is it of any advantage? Is it beneficial?
Hello, sir?
Yes, please. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I think one of the advantages of bioenergy, aside from using available end products of raw materials, is that it also reduces the effect of greenhouse gases, because the decomposition of these biodegradable materials also adds to the greenhouse gases.
Okay.
Also.
Okay. Thank you very much for that submission. And that is that. Yes. Anybody? Advantage?
Hi, sir.
Yes, please. Go ahead, sir.
In our case, currently in the Philippines,
Yep.
we are not yet harvesting the fossil fuels in our place.
Okay.
So we cannot build our own. Of course, there's a disadvantage of using fossil fuels. But I am talking about the availability of fuel. So one of the advantages of this bioenergy, it is readily available to all countries.
Okay.
Apart from being renewable. That's
okay.
all.
Okay. Availability is key as far as you are concerned, and this is something that we can almost have around us. We've already seen the sources, and we know what it is and the energy we can get from, and then these things are available. Biomass is with us every time, whether we like it or not, in our homes. We remember we talked about wastewater or sewage or sludge or whatever. And then in our backyards, we have the garbage and all that. So the availability is there. And probably maybe the handling and then the technology, that is where we may be somehow limited. Okay? Yes, more. Advantage.
Yes, sir. This is Anne.
Yep. Great.
Emmeline.
Yes, Emmeline.
Yes, sir. I can say that one of the benefits of bioenergy is its advantage for cost savings.
Okay.
Using the right bioenergy technology can help achieve greater cost savings than with that using of fossil fuels.
Okay.
For example, those methane harvested from the process of decomposition of biomass can be a the alternative for LPG, perhaps, for
Okay.
household use.
Okay.
So that's one, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Emmeline. And okay, secondly, what do you think the backside, the other side, the cons of this resource, bioenergy? What are the disadvantages of bioenergy?
They're expensive
Expensive, okay?
and not as efficient as other processes.
Okay, not efficient, all right. Yes, more contributions. Disadvantage? Disadvantages?
Sure.
Yes, please.
For the disadvantage for the bioenergy,
Yep.
I think like a case in my country that we use biodiesel that mostly came from from palm oil.
Mm-hmm.
So it means if we increase the use of this biodiesel, we need to increase the palm oil plantation,
Okay.
and the palm oil plantation also have a contribute the carbon to release more carbon compared to the other plantation. So
okay. All right. Thank you very much for the submission. And well, in addition to all that we've said, we can add to that. Somebody provided this, that some of the advantages and the disadvantages. Maybe you check quickly and then see some of those things, and then what are the advantages and the disadvantages. I think somebody mentioned this is clean, is cleaner, or whatever they call it, green energy form. They are renewable. I think somebody mentioned this, right? And sustainable, because they also belong to the category of sustainable energy sources. All right. The unit cost, somebody is talking about cost. Somebody is going contrary to what one of us said. But remember, nobody is right, nobody is wrong. It just depending on which angle you are looking at it from. Okay? Your opinion is respected, your perspective, and then your perception is respected. Okay? And then the amount, availability, very large amounts, we have them around us. Okay? The level of somebody say low level of dependence on other countries. You don't have to depend that, okay, at least nature has so blessed us that there is no country that can say, even though in the desert and all that, we cannot say that we don't have these resources. Okay? So, and is a scalable and flexible, form of energy. You can scale it, and then because of the wide range of advantages you can derive from that. Okay, and then there are some, so far, at least we can say there are mature technologies due to extensive research. There's somebody said they are not really yet advanced or maybe workable in some countries, in some nations, but some people have gone actually so far. All right. You can diversify the raw materials, and now that we are talking of rubber, para-rubber tree, for example. We have a lot of other forms of things to diversify the materials possible, even within a singular resource. Like the rubber tree have shown us some of those parts that can be utilized and then differently. Okay. Sometimes the issue of transportation most of the plants, if you want to really maximize the use of these resources, most of the plants are sited proximately in proximity to the source of the resource. You don't have to really take much time and then before you assess that. At least within the radius of maybe 50 kilometers, you can site a plant or facility to be able to harness and tap from resources. Okay, biofuel technology is relatively safe. The technology is relatively safe, at least compared to other forms of energy. For example, even think of the technology of petroleum, nuclear technology and all that. You will know that at least biomass is something. Okay, somebody has mentioned this low level of greenhouse gas emission, and then we have local job creation, the socio-economic aspect. Like for example, the Fatalum green plant we're having. If you need to see the socio-economic benefits, even the community is driving from that. Farmers would have been contemplating, for example, what will happen if I cut my rubber tree? What will happen to the stump? Where am I going to put it? Even if I clear, I need to replant, reforest my plantation. What am I going to do? Here comes a plant. Say that, okay, bring your stump. We are ready to buy. They buy from them, and they combust this and turn it. Economic activity boost. There is a boosting of economic activities. Okay, so and that is that. On the cons side, on the disadvantage side, it can be quite inefficient. I think somebody said it. After putting in much resources, the output compared to other sources, you know that is really not something to write home about. Okay, then you need large amounts, okay, and then you also the greenhouse gas emission. There is also, even though we are saying is low, but there is still emission. So, and we cannot rule it out. Okay. And the use of chemical fertilizer and pesticides. Okay. And then high initial investment required to be able to set up any initiative that you can use that. And then because of this, we've seen the implication from one of the clips that, okay, when we want to capitalize on biofuel, food security will be at risk. So it's already a competitor to food security. When we're thinking of bioenergy security, food security is also something that is competing with. Okay, energy and food, which one can we decide along? Okay. Now, when this happens, then you can be sure we'll run into problems. High water demand. If you want to get sufficient of the energy from bioenergy, and then pollution in the chain sometimes. Most of the plants claim that, okay, they have a way of making safe use of the products, but at the same time you cannot rule out the fact that these things can still have some effects. And then you will need large area. For some countries, that space is an issue. You know that there is a problem already if you want to set up a biofuel system. Okay, so that is that about the advantages and disadvantages, and then I will quickly run down through. We can conclude from what we are saying. We've been saying all the while. Accounting for bioenergy to meet the energy demand and reduce greenhouse emissions, improve soil and water quality, provide economic development, and other socio-economic benefit. That is there. That is already is what we are clamoring for, advocating. Okay. It's also good, very important to note that bioenergy provides use for their waste streams. It can help them reduce their energy cost potentially and add new revenue streams, especially when you think of the circular economic inclusion or aspect of bioenergy system. Trying to utilize, make use of everything, so that can help to augment any other economic pressure. Okay, especially when you want to generate electricity to sell, and then some other benefits. Okay, using biomass can help to build resilience. In agriculture, timber, food processing industries. If you begin to put emphasis on that, it can really help. Okay, and then it has advantage. It has advantage as well, and disadvantages. We've already looked at this and we saw how it could be an issue. All right. So, and then biomass industry is renewable and harmless to living things. Although biomass industry will be expensive, it can still be very big step to protecting resources in the world and reducing greenhouse effect for environmental friendliness. So it is easy to submit these conclusions. All right, we just have a few minutes. I encourage us to look at those resources, explore those processes. Okay, we have 6 minutes to go. I want to say these are some of the places. If you want, some links, important links. If you want to get some data about bioenergy, biofuels, and all that, when you can get to these points, and then you can access some of those data, and particularly on a global scale, and then probably in some specific countries or regions of the world. It's really important if you can access those. Okay, and then some of you that want to go into research and all that, I think that would be really important. You can get some ideas from there. All right, in 1 minute, any question? Any something you?
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
I want to ask something.
Yes, please. Thank you. Any comment or question or something?
As you know, Indonesia and Malaysia are the biggest producer for palm oil in the world.
Okay.
But recently, I think how sustainable of palm oil, because until now maybe there are some country refuse to accept palm oil export from Malaysia and Indonesia.
Okay.
How do you think? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. What do you think? He is posting that comment to us and all that. All of us generally. What do you think about this? Anybody want to respond? Hello? Anybody in the class? Are we there? All right, yeah, that is that. Anybody? Yeah, somebody want to say something.
Yeah, sorry, pardon me. I just take my leak.
Okay.
Please,
Okay, that's
repeat the. Yes, please.
all right. That's all right. That's okay. Okay. So please, let's know that it is important that we know that we don't compromise, despite the fact that we're looking for energy, bioenergy, and all that. The issue is there is also a competitor. We must have that biochemical energy. Food is very important. That's the reason why it is not advisable generally to use any product or resource that is both for edible and non-edible or something. Remember the generations we looked at from that clip. First generation was already hampering on food, and then second generation that needed to be outside anything that will compete with food. So I think that is very important. And the application of bioenergy globally, you can see some of these links are important to see the ranking of the consumption, production, and what have you. And I think in this part of the world, Indonesia is really, anybody from Indonesia here? Indonesia? Yeah.
I'm from Indonesia.
Indonesia, yeah. So I think Indonesia is one of the first 10 countries in the world that are really into that. Just that we don't have time, would have given you, if maybe you have any experience, to share with us if you are aware at all. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure meeting you, and then I want to say thank you for your audience. Thank you for having this time with me. This is the sign of respect. Sawadee
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sawadee Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. See you some other time. See you some other time.